Hi, I'm Diane Degnan. Welcome to the Digital Lounge. We're here at the General Conference in Portland, Oregon, and my guest today is the Reverend Jason Radmacher. He's pastor of John Street United Methodist Church, which is the oldest United Methodist church at 250 years old. They're celebrating their anniversary this year. He joins us today after having a celebration moment at the General Conference. Welcome. Thanks, you for joining us.
Thank you.
So what's it like to be the pastor of the oldest United Methodist church?
It's a little intimidating when I began. I was 27 years old when I was appointed there. So this sense of literally taking an appointment that people like Francis Asbury held years ago was kind of daunting. And I learned very quickly that it's better just to focus on the job at hand and don't try to think about the years of history before you, but to think of what are we called to do today? What are we called to do for this time? And I learned that maybe in my first year or two in the appointment, and that kind of made a tremendous change, just the ability to focus, to be a pastor, and to do the work that God was calling me to do, that the congregation was called to do, and ultimately I think it's the kind of work that people like Asbury would be pleased with, to know that we're still ministering to the people of New York City 250 years later.
So tell me a little bit about the history and what are some of the notable moments in the church's history?
We've got a lot. I have an hour-long lecture that I usually give to confirmation classes and groups that visit.
250 years, right?
Right.
So you can't really cap it up in a moment.
Truthfully, we try to tell the history, the high moments and the low moments. We feel that approaching it, being honest about some of the failures of the past is good for us to learn from. So discrimination in the congregation, for example, led to the creation of the AME Zion movement, the AME Zion Church. There have been other conflicts throughout history as well. But then there are these exciting moments, like the hymn writer Fanny Crosby, for example, becoming a part of the congregation in the years after the Civil War, really pushing and leading the people there, not just in the congregation, but her ministry around the world, to get people to engage with the poor and people living in really some of the dire conditions, the 5 points, famous 5 points of New York City, to be in a place that has a connection to some real intense struggles, human struggles, but to know that people have been trying to seek and to do God's will in the midst of those, in those really challenging spaces.
I understand the church has really been a place of healing from the American Revolution to the Great Depression to 9/11. What can you tell us about that?
It's again one of those wild things with our history that we're older than the country, so we go back before the American Revolution. And there was a conflict. It's called the Battle of Golden Hill. Not all the history books cover it, but it was a conflict between those who wanted revolution and those who were loyal. It resulted with people being wounded, and those wounded were cared for at the original Wesley Chapel, the original building that stood on our site. And that was before the Declaration of Independence even. And then you can go all the way to the era after 9/11. September 11, 2001. We're the closest United Methodist Church to where the World Trade Center stood. We're 2 blocks away from where the Twin Towers were. So in the aftermath of that, the congregation was again a place of healing. So we can truly say that this is a place where people have sought God's comfort from before the American Revolution to contemporary struggles of global terrorism and urban violence and just what we experienced as a country, as a people in 2001.
Now you have a little bit of a different relationship with the General Conference than most churches, right?
Yes, yeah, that is true.
Tell us about that.
I believe we're the only congregation in the denomination that has our board of trustees elected by General Conference, which is it's such a strange thing, but it's born out of one of those conflicts that I mentioned. There was a tremendous struggle. I know there are still churches that debate whether they stay in their downtown location or move to the suburbs. John Street had that debate in the 1830s about whether we'd stay downtown or move. And that debate actually lingered for 20 years or longer. And it actually became so contentious, there was actually a street fight, a riot between members of the congregation. We actually have in our museum a club left over from the fight where they punched it out with each other. And that, people noticed that when the oldest Methodist church in the country was beating each other with sticks. People thought we should probably step in. And one of the things that the General Conference did in the aftermath of the street fight was to say, we have an interest in John Street remaining a house of worship, and that you stay on John Street. So we're going to take your right to elect your own trustees from the congregation. So since the 1870s, since a little bit after the Civil War, the U.S. Civil War, the General Conference has elected our Board of Trustees. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you get a lot of people dropping by to visit?
We do, yeah. It's one of the great parts of the ministry there is the opportunity to meet people from all over the world. I mean, even coming out here to Portland, I've crossed paths with people who had visited John Street previously. So it's a wonderful reminder of those ties that bind us together, and to reconnect with people who have either visited the church, or certainly it's the place that I think most seminary students read about it in their church history class. So we see plenty of people from all over the U.S. and actually all over the world come to visit John Street. Yeah.
Well, I hope I get a chance to visit one day.
I hope you do too. Yeah, come see us sometime.
And we appreciate you coming by to visit us here in the Digital Lounge.
My pleasure.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us, and check back for more interviews at the United Methodist General Conference.